Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Sebastian Marks, and I'm the manager of future students at the University of the Sunshine Coast. Now, I've got the best job in the world because for the last 15 years, I've been helping people connect to education and effectively make things easier when it comes to making a decision to go to university or making the decision on what it is exactly you might want to study. Now, in today's webinar, we're going to be covering a fairly wide range of topics. But before we do kick off, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land that we're all meeting today. For me, that's Gubby Gubby people, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and just acknowledge that our university and its campuses were places of learning long before there was a university campus there. So in terms of the content we're going to be speaking about today, we'll be talking a little bit about the University of the Sunshine Coast and some of the reasons why we might be a great pick for you. Then we'll be talking a bit more about clarification over getting into university, alternative pathways if things don't go to plan, as well as what happens if you change your mind once you get to university and decide that the degree you're in is not there for you. From there, we'll be covering going into a bit more detail about enrollment, what the first year of study is going to be like, and we've actually got a current student today to speak to us as well. Now, we won't be taking questions live until the end. If you would like to ask a question today, please do place that within the Q&A, just to enable us to manage that one from there. So if any questions you place into the Q&A, we'll either answer, if it's a simple question, we might be able to answer it over the chat over the course of the webinar, or if it's something that we think a lot of people want to hear about, we will make it a bit of a Q&A towards the end as well. But just drop that all through into the Q&A. Okay, so the University of Sunshine Coast, who are we? We're a pretty young university. We're only about 25 years old compared to most of the universities in Queensland. That makes us a bit of a youngster. It does mean that we've been able to grow, I suppose, among the modern expectations of what a university is. As a result, at our university, students are at the center of what we do. Our teaching, our experience, our learning is really about what we focus on. And I'll talk about that in a bit more detail moving on through as well. In addition to that, we do focus on areas of research that are of important to our local community. As a small regional university, it is really important that we're focusing on, I suppose, the most relevant possible research. So we focus on things that matter to the Sunshine Coast, to Moreton Bay, to Fraser Coast, to the areas that we call home. So things like road safety, mental health, sustainability, the environment. Curing koalas of chlamydia, all those sorts of things that get the people in our communities passionate. So, as a university, we do have 5 campuses spread from Fraser Coast, our Fraser Coast campus in Hervey Bay, all the way down to our new campus in Petrie in Moreton Bay in North Brisbane. That one's right next to the Petrie train station there. And different campuses have different offering. Increasingly, we are seeing also a lot of online students. And we do have I think it's about 2,000 students studying now completely online. But interestingly enough, a lot of our students are now moving towards a more multimodal approach to learning. So even though we only have about 2,000 students studying online, about 1/4 of our students do at least one class online. So making sure that their class schedules can fit better into their days, and they can study on their terms as fits within their schedules. When it comes to support, I really want to struggle that as you commence your university journey, you're not on your own. We actually offer a pretty diverse range of support services. There's everything you need from actual academic support. So if you actually need someone to sit down with you and help you make sure that that your assessments were correct, or that you know how to use the library resources or reference correctly, or if you just need a point in the right direction, you've got access to academics that will know who you are. This being a smaller university means you get better access to the experts, which means that you will get to know your lecturers and tutors on a first name basis, and that's going to provide you with better access to be able to have those consults and get the support you need. When it comes to student wellness, obviously health and well-being, disability support, making sure that we can enable your study, whatever barriers might be getting in the way. We've got a range of support services that can help you there. And if you're going through a rough time, either with your health or mental health, we do have support and opportunities there for you to speak to someone, get support, and go from there. We do have a careers and employment team who are dedicated to making sure that when you graduate, you get an opportunity. And one of the things that we're most proud of is that 7 out of 10 of our graduates actually get jobs within the local region. So we do support our local economy, and our partnerships and connections with local businesses and industry is part of the reason why our students do succeed as well. We do have a dedicated student success team whose job it is to basically trawl through the data, your data, look at how you're performing, and reach out to you if you do feel like you might be a bit struggling. While it is really important that when you're at university, you do step up and put your hand up and ask if you do need a bit of extra support. We'll also be keeping a bit of an eye on you as well, and reaching out to you if you do think you need a bit of support along the way. As I mentioned, employability is pretty big for us. We've actually integrated integrated learning into just about, well, literally every single degree that the university offers, which means whether you're getting field experience, whether you are in a practical or an internship or a work placement, you're going to be getting exposure to employers, to actual real settings, using machines, materials, and equipment that you will be using in the field when you do eventually graduate as well, which means that you're going to be prepared, ready to go when you get out there. We've got some fantastic partnerships. And as I said, being a regional university, it does give us a local connection to get into more businesses that are actually employing locals. So moving on to getting into university, there's always a little bit of confusion as to sort of how it goes. And I'm having a look at this. I'm having a look at this. One of the questions now in the Q&A: do universities see a raw ATAR or an adjusted ATAR? Well, we actually see them both. Although in most cases, we'll only ever be using your adjusted ATAR. What that means is that when you do apply for a university and you use your selection rank or your ATAR as your entry score, universities might make certain adjustments or apply effectively bonuses to those scores based on certain characteristics. So it could be that you've come from a background of financial hardship, or you've studied, or you might be a secondary school student who studied some of the more difficult subjects like a language other than English or specialist mathematics. So the universities will make those adjustments in reflection of your actual score based on that run from there. And basically, we will use whatever's highest to get into most degrees. There are a couple of exceptions out there where adjustments don't apply, but those will be stated very quickly on those programs, things like medical science and things like that as well. Cool. When it comes to making an assessment, we look at two things: merit and eligibility. Effectively, merit could be a selection rank, it could be an ATAR, and well, actually, it's one of those two things. So you can get a selection rank from a lot of different things. It can be from completing a certificate 3 or 4 or diploma. So vet studies at a certificate 3 or higher will actually provide you with a selection rank that's directly equivalent to an ATAR. Now, if you're a school student on the line who's already done a vet certificate as well as high school, well, you're actually coming in with two different selection ranks: your ATAR and your vet certificate. And we're just going to use whichever one's highest. And in fact, most universities in the state will make that assessment as well. So you're not disadvantaged by having an extra selection rank. In fact, there'll be people out there who've done lots of different things. Maybe you've done a semester of university study at another university. You've done a couple of vet certificates and you've done high school. You might have 3, 4, 5 different selection ranks under your belt. Again, we'll just assess those on whichever one is highest, apply any adjustments that you're eligible for, and look at that to assess you in for most programs. But we do also have eligibility criteria as well. So this means that certain degrees or certain applicants will have to meet certain criteria in order to apply. The most common one of those are going to be subject prerequisites. And probably the best illustration of that is education-based programs. So if you want to be a teacher in Queensland, the Queensland College of Teachers requires that universities place subject prerequisites on entry to study, which means if you want to be, say, a primary school teacher, you have to have done a certain level of mathematics, English, and a science in order to apply for those courses. Now, there are other ways to meet those subject prerequisites, particularly through university enabling, which I will be touching on today. But generally speaking, that's the eligibility process. So what we do is we check you're eligible, and if you are, we basically line everybody up from the highest selection rank to the lowest selection rank, and those ATARs will directly equate to one of those selection ranks, so we can fit people in nicely into a line. And we basically just keep offering spaces until that degree is full. And that's how assessments are made for entry into university. So we get a lot of really common questions, which are a few here. What happens if I don't get my first preference? What happens if university is too hard? I don't like my degree. I change my mind. Um, well, good news. It's actually really a pretty simple process once you're in. In fact, once you start at university, moving around gets a little bit easier, and we'll be touching on a couple of these pathways today. Um, so some of the specific ones we'll be talking about is using previous study. We're talking about obviously applying using your high school results or your OP or your TE score if you're a little bit older. We'll be talking about the tertiary preparation pathway and other pathways that you can move into. So the first one I want to talk about is other university study. So once you've started completing university courses, you'll find that once you've done two or more, you'll get another one of those little selection ranks tied to your profile. Now, that selection rank is determined based on the number of courses that you've completed and the grades that you received in those courses. So if you get, say, straight passes for one full-time year of study, so 8 courses, you're looking at straight passes, C minus, just barely skimming through. Well, you're sitting on an ATAR equivalent in the low 90s, and that's transferable to most universities in Queensland. So the reason why is because universities have a lot of really smart people that can put a lot of data together, and we've found that the best indicator for success at university is prior success at university. As a result, if you have studied at university for a year and you've gotten decent grades and you've succeeded, then that gives us a lot of confidence and be able to admit you at that level because you have completed studies at a university level prior. So what that means is if you don't get the degree you wanted to the first time, or if you start a degree and decide it's not for you, you might find you have a lot of other options out there in order to let you sort of pick and choose and move between degrees. Now, at our university, we do also have a number of shorter qualifications, such as undergraduate certificates, which are 4 courses or 6 months full time, and undergraduate diplomas, which are 12 months or 8 courses full time. And that's a really fantastic way to build a selection rank up, get some experience, and get a quick qualification if you're just looking for a little bit of paper so you can enter into the workforce and start working in there. Now, the good thing about it, and we'll talk about this a bit more later as well, is that all those previous studies can quite often provide credit into your eventual degree. Um, all right, the tertiary preparation pathway. I'm just seeing we've got a couple of questions in the chat here on it now. Sensational. I'll answer that live. All right. Okay. So the tertiary preparation pathway is an alternative pathway in which students can undertake some what we call enabling study before they commence their university degree. It means they get some preparation courses in basically how to be a university student 101, learn how to write assessments, how to manage their time, how to reference correctly, how to use the library. They basically get a crash course in being a student. They also get to undertake courses in, say, the sciences or mathematics, if you are moving into a degree where that's a requirement and you haven't had the appropriate preparation beforehand. And those courses can also be used to meet those tertiary prerequisites to get you where you're going. It's offered completely free of charge, subsidized entirely by the federal government, which means that you get access to all that preparation at no additional cost. A really fantastic pathway. You chuck it onto your QTAC preference list, and it's a really useful final preference because if you haven't completed that. Because if you don't get into your earlier preferences, that one there is a bit of a guaranteed entry. All right. So if you haven't already, apply through to QTAC. We do have January offer rounds if you haven't applied yet that you'll still receive offers for, but you can actually keep applying through as well. If you've already got an application in, you actually have until Monday at noon on Monday to change your preferences ahead of the December offer round. So that offer round will be coming out next Thursday, and you have to have your preferences changed by Monday to get in before then. But if you haven't yet lodged that QTAC application, it does take them a few weeks to get that assessment. Don't worry, you're not late. In fact, we'll probably have about 2,000 to 3,000 students apply over the next 2 months. So December and January is really where it's at for a lot of applicants. So don't panic if you haven't got to it yet, because you still have a bit of time. But getting in as early as possible just makes things a little bit easier for you, give you a bit more certainty along the way as well. All right. If you haven't yet structured a preference list, we just wanted to give you a bit of advice. Your first and second preference, so you get 6 on a QTAC application. The way that it works is that QTAC will assess your highest, they'll check your eligibility, they'll put you in merit order, and if you don't receive an offer for that program, they'll then look at how you go on preference 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down to 6. So preference 1 and 2, we recommend you put the degrees, well, you actually want to get into. You're only going to receive an offer for your for the highest degree that on your list that you meet the eligibility for and you meet the merit order for. So it really is important that you go through and have those dream courses as 1 and 2. You might want to put some backup courses in 3 and 4. And then for 5 and 6, if you've got a full list already, I would really recommend that you put something like TPP or a diploma or an undergraduate certificate in there, just because it can provide you with a way, get your foot in the door, get that GPA up, so you can look at transferring into another degree as you go from there as well. So what happens then is you receive an offer. And I do see there's a question there in relation to offer rounds. So what actually happens is that you'll receive a communication from QTAC and the university, and effectively you'll be given 3 options with a couple of conditional responses as well: accept, reject, and defer. Now, you can respond to one of these outright. Accept is pretty self-explanatory. You'll be able to say, yep, put me in, enroll me, I'm ready to start. You can reject it, which means, no, not today, and your QTAC application stops. So this is really important. Like if you hit reject offer, that's sort of the end for your QTAC journey in that round. You can definitely jump back in future rounds, or you can also reactivate some things for QTAC as well. But it effectively takes you out of the running. And you can also choose to defer your studies. Now, we also do have some conditional responses because sometimes, and just naturally by the process, some students don't get their first preference. So if you conditionally accept, reject, or defer your offer, it basically means, hey, I will either reject it or defer it or accept it, but I still want to be considered for my higher preference. And what might happen is in one of those very late rounds, so in January or February, someone else might decide to defer or withdraw their offer. And if they do, that creates one extra space, and we go back to the who's still waiting in the list. And if you're still on the list, that you get a conditional response. You might still receive an offer for that program. So you should. I would always say, if you don't get your first preference, conditionally accept, because that way you're still going to be in the running, and it might be a bit of a change of plans, and sometimes quite late notice. But if that's where you really want to go, then you should try to get there first, unless you've looked in yourself and you've realized that you do need some university prep or some support to really give it a good crack and do the best you possibly can. All right. Um, so what to expect? So we'll send you an email if you receive an offer. It's really important that you both accept through the university and through QTAC. There's multiple tasks at both sites. You can't do one and not the other. Otherwise, it does cause some problems. We will straighten them out, but just to ease your stress and worry, it's always best to sort of get it out. So read those emails carefully. It's definitely not one to skim read. Follow all instructions, and honestly, we'll put you through the process step by step. So you will receive that email from there. Once you do accept your offer through the university, we're going to prompt you about applying for credit. Now, we've talked about credit a little bit when we were talking about how you can use other university degrees to move from one degree to another. So when you apply for credit at university, you can apply for credit from having done prior university study, so undergraduate degree study at any university in Australia or the world. What we do then is we generally will go through and map those courses that you've completed against your new degree, and you'll either receive specified credit, which is specific credit against specific courses in your degree, or perhaps general elective credit, which gives you a little bit more flexibility as to where you can apply that. Now, in addition to credit for previous undergraduate study, you may also receive credit for diplomas or certificate for courses that you may have completed. So this is a really important process to go through if you do have prior vet qualifications, because you never know, it might knock 1 or 2 courses off your degree, sometimes a lot more. In fact, diplomas can knock up to a year of study off your degree, depending on which diploma you've done and what degree you're applying for. So definitely worth going through and applying for if you think you're going to be eligible there as well. Now, this is one of those other ones where there's a bit of a time process that goes with it. So we've got a small team that handle our credits at the university. And as you can imagine, they get quite busy at this time of year. So the earlier that you apply, the earlier that you put in your documentation, the earlier you can get your credit assessed. And basically that means that there's not going to be no last minute switches around of classes that you're enrolling in because you suddenly got credit for one of them. So definitely one you want to start earlier. All right. From there, once you've accepted your offer, you'll have the opportunity to start enrolling in your courses. Well, nearly. Depends on the time in which you accept your offer and whether or not you're a new student or not. So basically, and I think I got dates a little bit later on. But basically, when we talk about courses, and is it going to get confusing, particularly if you studied at other universities, because different universities in Queensland call courses, subjects, and programs different things depending on where you are. So at the university, when we're talking about a program, we're talking about the Bachelor of Business, as you can see here. So this here is your program, the Bachelor of Business, and that's a program of study. That study is made up of courses. So if you go to the program detail tab on any degree page on our website, it'll basically open up the list of courses that you study. You'll scroll down to study sequences, and you'll be able to then select what campus you're at, what semester you're commencing in, and it's going to give you um, uh, a recommended semester one enrollment plan to help get you started along the way. So we've done a lot of the groundwork for you. If you do want to be part-time or you're coming in with a bit of credit potentially, you might need to make a meeting with someone from your school just to have a bit of a chat to them about how you want to structure your degree. But someone from Student Central can help connect you there, and you'll be able to make a bit of a plan. Um, from there, you'll jump into an area called USC Central, which is where you manage your enrollment. It's also where you manage your finances accounts. It's where you register for HEX help loans. And you'll have to complete a number of tasks in this system when you first set up as a student. But you basically go to this Manage Enrollment tab, and we'll email you through a play-by-play as well that you can follow. Go enroll by my requirements, and it's going to help you fill out that one from there. Then you can register for your classes via UniSC Central. So after you've enrolled in your classes, you'll then need to select the timetable. Now, you can actually see that timetable right now. So a student who has just enrolled or received an offer, or even if you just want to access it as a public facing, you can actually access the timetable for semester one right now. But new students can't actually enroll in their classes at the time until Monday, the 16th of January. So you've still got a couple of weeks to lock those ones in. Obviously, classes can be a bit competitive if there's a good time slot, but particularly for most first year courses, there's lots of different classes on offer. So you usually have a long list of class times that you can choose from. So as a result, it is a little bit easier for us to it is a little bit easier to sort of plan your timetable around your life. But if you ever get in a bind, there's a class that you really need to get into because you need it to make it work for work, for kids, for sport, or whatever else has gone on in your life. Have a chat to Student Central, and they can see what they can do to support you through that process. As you can imagine, it's an everyday occurrence at a university. Things like that come up. But look, if you don't ask, you don't get the help you need. So definitely make sure you reach out to us and speak to us at that point. From there, you'll be able to go through, choose your classes, and enroll in those courses, those tutorials and workshops, and other things you got from there as well. All right. Now, you're probably a little bit sick of me speaking. So I'm actually going to hand over to a current UniSC student, Zoe, who's going to share some of her experiences about and tips about starting at university. I will jump into the Q&A while Zoe's speaking if you do have any specific questions. But keeping in mind, we will also take some live questions at the end as well. All right, Zoe, please jump on.
Hi everyone. Just making sure everyone can hear me okay. My name's Zoe and I am studying here at UniSC on the Mississippi Downs campus. I'm currently studying a Bachelor of Primary Education, and I'm just going to talk to you guys a little bit about what uni is like from a student perspective and give you some tips that you might find helpful when enrolling in uni and when you first start in semester one. So currently I'm third year student, so I've still got one more year to go of my degree. And I did graduate from James Nash State High School in 2021, so not too long ago, but it feels like so much has happened since then. Um, And I just want to see, sorry, one moment, just see if I can change the slide for you. Awesome. Beautiful. So that's the one I was looking for. So I graduated from James Nash in 2021, and I like to keep myself busy. So I like going to the beach, dancing, and then my role here at UniSC as an ambassador as well. So you're probably wondering how I got into university, and it's a question that many people ask. I like to think of it as a way that most people don't usually go, but it is an option for a lot of people, and we are finding that it's an option that people do take more and more. So I started in year 11 at James Nash, going for my ATAR. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I just wanted to keep my options open. I later then dropped it in term 2 of year 11 because things were just getting a little bit overwhelming and I had a lot on my plate in my personal life as well. So I just stuck with my QCE and going for my year 12 certificate that way. I just kind of got through and got to year 12 and I went on work experience in a primary school, and that's how I decided that I really did want to pursue with teaching. And I thought that there was no way I could possibly go to university and become a teacher because I wasn't going for an ATAR, and it just wasn't really an option for me. But after speaking to my guidance officer, she actually recommended the TPP program here at UniSC, and that I could get into university with a certificate 3 in business admin. Crazily enough, I could use that as my rank as an alternate path into university. So I did that. I used that rank, and then I applied for an early offer guarantee into TPP. So the tertiary pathways program that Sebastian spoke on earlier was what I studied to meet the prerequisites that I didn't have to get into my degree. So for Bachelor of Primary Education, I had to have general English, maths, and general science completed, whereas I only had the general maths prerequisite. So I did TPP in session 8 to kind of bridge that pathway and give me the prerequisites that I required to be eligible to enroll into the program. So I finished that in a snippet of a course which is called session 8. So it's a little bit of a shorter intensive compared to in a semester like semester 1 or semester 2. And then once I finished that, I was really lucky to be accepted into my degree. And here I am now studying as an education student, which I absolutely love. Next on the next slide. Oh, thank you. So where to next for me? I would love to do some traveling around Australia and complete my rural placement. And eventually I'd love to come back to UniSC and do a Master of Education, either through research or leadership. Haven't really decided on that one yet. And my tip is probably to make the most of the resources and support on campus, because you never really are alone. Next, I will go through with you just some of the tips that I have as a student and what I found worked best for me in my first year. So tip number 1 is definitely to attend orientation week. So orientation week is the week before you start your classes at university, and it runs usually for 4 to 5 days of on-campus and online activity. So it's a great way to meet new friends. Your program academics will have lectures where you can go and get information about what your degree will be like before you start. They will talk you through what will be required of you in your tutorials and lectures as well. You can attend study sessions that can give you like workshops that can give you skills you might need to study or to reference, or learn how to write essays if you haven't done academic styled writing before. And then they can also have IT support to help you log on to the Wi-Fi and access the printers and all of that, which is really, really handy to have before you start. There's also a great way to join clubs and sign up for volunteering if that's something you're interested in through the Students as Partners program as well. Tip number 2 would be to go to class and put in the work. So even though it is different to school and you don't have to be at university 5 days a week for 6 hours a day, whatever way you choose to timetable your classes, regardless of what that looks like for you, definitely go to class is my number one tip, and be active in that time as well, because you do only get to see your teacher for say 2 to 3 hours a week, depending on what you study. So that time's really, really valuable and a good way to ask questions and meet other people in your class as well, because you'll most likely be with them for that 3 or 4 years that you're studying your program. So it's good to make those connections and then work on assignments and things like that as well with those people. Tip number 3 is get support, because you're never alone. So I think when I started university, I felt, because I didn't go on that ATAR pathway, that I wasn't really equipped for uni. I just felt like I wasn't going to be able to do as well as my peers that had gone on that pathway. But I find doing the TPP program really, really helped me, and attending those orientation week workshops. So learning how to Harvard reference and how to write an essay and how to even know what font to use when you're typing up your assignments, like things like that, and how to find journal articles and textbooks. All of those skills were really, really valuable to me that I got from those classes or workshops in that orientation week. Also, the accessibility services, if you have any challenges that you might face while you're on your academic journey, even if you just break your arm and you have to go on placement, and that's going to be really difficult for you, they can make adjustments for that. And if you need financial support, there's always scholarships and bursaries on offer as well. Any type of support that you might need, the university's got it. So don't be afraid to put your hand up, because there's so much support around. Tip number 4 would definitely be finding a balance. So there were a few questions I saw in the chat about how we should timetable your classes, and that's the best thing about university. For me, it was a massive shock, because it was a skill that took a while for me to develop, but talking to the student support services, they really helped me with this. So there was so much flexibility. You could have one class every day for 5 days a week. You could have all of your classes on one day and then have 4 days, well, 5 days really, to yourself to do whatever you wanted. So having that flexibility was really challenging for me, but using the support really helped. I find that having 3 days at uni works for me personally. So I'll generally put 2 courses on one day, 1 on the other, and 1 on another when I'm studying 4, which is a full-time load. And then I'll work 2 days a week at my part-time job, and then the other 1 or 2, like I'll just kind of have to myself, or I'll do some online study as well, catch up on some assignments, visit my friends, go to the beach, that kind of thing. So it really does depend what works for you. You might be an early riser and love 8 a.m. classes, or you might be a night owl and want to do those 8 p.m. classes after work or after the gym. And so it's really quite flexible, and just think about what works best for you. Like if you know that you would prefer to get it all done on one day, try and pick all your classes on one day. So it really does just take finding out what works best for you. And it's really lucky that you can at each semester change your class timetables when you do a new enrollments for each course as well. So if you find you don't like those 8 a.m. classes, you can always change the next semester when you do the next stage of enrollment as well. Tip number 5 is definitely get involved. So we're really lucky here at UniSC. It's like a little community. We've got so much on offer that you can do. So we have our students as partners team, and there's 3 different ways you can be involved with that. So we've got volunteering. So that's with events that we might have on campus, or we might have visits or anything like that you can be a part of. Then we've also got our student leaders. So that's a really great way later on in your program. You might decide you want to do a little bit of mentoring with the first year students. And that's a great opportunity as well, to just get to know people. It's really great networking, and just be able to share your tips and tricks with other people too. Then we've also got our student representative roles. So that's being a part of the student body and the student voice. So if that's something you're really passionate about, or if you've done previously at school, that's always a great opportunity as well. We've got so many student clubs as well that you can join, especially in orientation week that I spoke on earlier. Whatever you're into, whether it's Quidditch, gymnastics, chess, swimming, there's a club for it. So I do recommend always signing up for those as well. And then they also have clubs within your discipline. So they've got like nursing societies, law societies. So it's a really great way to connect with other people that are like-minded and really enjoy the same things that you do as well. Just go to the next one. Awesome. There's a lot more beyond the classroom. So university isn't always just about studying. Like I said, there's the clubs and groups. We've got recreational sporting teams that happen each week as well. We have our high performance student athlete program. So if you are performing at a high level in whatever sport that you are a part of, there's a wide variety of different teams that you can join. And they also cater towards your studies as well. So if you have to fly overseas or interstate to compete at a competition, they can move your assignments around to make it fit for you if you're going to be away for that exam or that internship as well. So they're really, really supportive during that process. There's events and entertainment. We've always got things going out on the lawn, on the Sippy Downs campus, Mourne Bay. They've got online Zoom events as well that you can be a part of, and then volunteering that we spoke about earlier too. Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, Zoe.
That's okay.
All right. I don't know if anyone's been following. We've had a lot of questions through the Q&A already. And look, we know that sometimes, particularly at this pointed time of year, often one of the things that people are looking for is someone to help explain what these things mean. So I've been answering a few questions as Zoe was speaking there, but we're now going to take a bunch of these live so that we can have a talk about these, because quite often the answers to these questions are going to be relevant to a lot of people out there. So we had a question here, for example, about the difference in workload between a single degree versus a double degree. So one of those, that's actually a really great question. In terms of workload, there's not a lot of difference. In fact, there's no difference. You'll be doing the same number of courses per year or per semester as any other full-time student would be. What changes is that a double degree adds usually an extra 12 months of study, can sometimes be more, to that degree, allowing you to take additional courses from that secondary area. So it extends the duration by increasing the number of courses you need to complete, but it doesn't actually add any extra time on a week-to-week level. Now, there might be some more challenges because you're studying from two different discipline areas that might require some different thinking or different preparation. But in terms of actual workload, there's no different times there as well. In terms of we do have we do accept the educational access scheme via QTAC. If you'd like to know more about our adjustment factors, we didn't go into a lot of detail about those today. They really are applied behind the scenes, provided you provided all your details through to QTAC. But if you Google our Access USC scheme, you'll be able to see how all of our adjustment factors, including our EA, our educational access scheme program, works as well. We've got a question here about changing medical degrees. So this is I'm assuming this is in relation to the Doctor of Medicine and pathways into clinical medicine professions. Now, changing degrees into degrees like medicine, veterinary science, dentistry can be a lot more complicated. Medicine in particular, because there's such a limited number of places and such a high demand. Now, our University of Sunshine Coast, doesn't offer a postgraduate medicine program at this stage. We do offer a provisional entry pathway for high school students entering into medicine. That particular program is currently tied to postgraduate places with Griffith University. So as a matter of policy, we can't comment on the admissions practices of other institutions. However, there are a range of ways in which different universities assess graduate medical applicants, and there are only a couple of universities left still offering undergraduate medicine degrees, so MBBS, for example, Bachelor of Medicine / Bachelor of Surgery, double degrees. All I can really do there is send you to those institutions to look at pathways into medicine. But our program, our provisional entry medicine program, is for school leavers only. We don't have any alternative pathways. It's a bit harder to change into. Other high entry score programs are a little bit easier because there's not usually additional tests. The exceptions being veterinary science and dentistry, where some universities do have additional criteria on those ones as well. If you go for TPP, can you get into a double degree? Yeah, absolutely. So TPP is something you do before you commence your degree. Um, I don't really want to confuse the issue too much, but say, for example, you are enrolled in a Bachelor of Business and you decide that you do think that maybe doing one of those TPP courses isn't a bad idea. We do actually have a program called the Tertiary Studies option, or TSO, which allows students to enroll in one of those TPP courses as part of their business studies as well. They still have to complete all their same business courses, but it lets you tack on a couple of those TPP courses and it's useful for you. But look, if you are using TPP as a pathway, you will receive a selection rank from those tertiary studies, and you'll be using those to apply for the straight Bachelor of Business or the double degree you apply for. So provided your selection rank you get from TPP or from another one of your background sources is high enough, then there's no reason why you can't move into any other degree. All TPP does is give you some tertiary study under your belt, so you've got a selection rank, you've met prerequisites, and that you actually feel that confidence and that knowledge that you can go into any of these degrees and succeed. It's about equipping you with everything you need to tackle university. How do I know what courses to choose? So the best place to go for that is to jump onto the university website, look up the degree that you are enrolling into, and you'll be able to click the program details. There'll be a full list of the courses, the introductory, developing, and the advanced courses that you'll complete within that degree. But if you scroll down to the bottom of that, you'll be able to see study plans for your commencing semester. So you'll be able to actually see the recommended order in which you enroll in those studies. Now, of course, students leave that order all the time. If you're a part-time student, you leave it from semester one, basically. And that's perfectly normal. You might just need to make a plan to particularly when it comes to certain courses only being offered in certain semester, to make sure that when you get towards the end of your degree, you've done things in a bit of a semblance of an order. And the Student Center can help you work those things out if you're not too sure. There's face-to-face places on every campus where you can speak to someone from the Student Central, or if you're an online student, or if you prefer to just do it all in writing so you can follow the instructions, you can also shoot through an email to information@usc.edu.au. How do I know what the correct courses I need to select in TPP? Well, there's about 6 or 7 on offer. It's the same way. If you go on the TPP page, go to program details, you'll be able to see the courses there. But TPP 101 is usually something that everyone includes. It's a great course, teaches you how to reference, how to use the library, how to write academically. It will teach you the difference between an essay and a report. And basically, the templates that they'll give you in that course, you'll be using for every single assignment you write for your degree. So some really, really high quality stuff to do in there. All right. Um, how do we find out if a specific course can hold an exchange program overseas? All right, this is a cool one. So after COVID, finally global mobility is coming back. This means that as part of your degree, you can actually go through and study overseas, earn credit, get a number of access to a number of scholarships and government support loans to help do this as well. You don't need to have the money sitting in a bank account beforehand in order to access these. But the idea is that you can either go do a semester abroad. We offer a number of degrees that have study tours, and we've even got individual courses which have specific options in there. I'll give you an example. At the moment, we've got a group of civil engineers in Kathmandu with one of our engineering academics, and they're looking at, I think it's like winter road surfaces or something like that. So basically, how you handle how bitumen handles ice and snow, which is obviously a big civil engineering challenge. And yeah, so they're actually out there in the field right now learning in another country. We've got other programs that will allow you to just do a semester at an overseas university, and you basically just get credit for the courses you've completed overseas. Now, there are some courses where it can be a little bit tricky to get an overseas placement. So there are some degrees out there that are heavily regulated in Australia. You want to think about your things like your nursing or your health-based programs, where you have to do a certain number of courses at a certain number of providers in order to actually get the qualification to be that professional in Australia. Now, that doesn't mean there's no opportunities. There might be short study tours or projects or things that you can work on, or there might be stuff that runs during the breaks as well. But the best thing that you can do is once you get to university, come to orientation week. USC International will have their own display. They'll be talking about mobile mobility. One of the biggest barriers that we've got to starting the program back up is students that are keen to go. So please do make sure you jump in and take advantage of that, because the more students that we can send overseas, the more we can get it's all partnership based. People going out, people coming back. So the more people that we can send out, the better opportunities we get. We can get out of it as well. All right. Yes, TPP can lead to a double degree. In fact, TPP can be used to access virtually all UniSC programs, even degrees of higher entry scores. Although with those more competitive programs, obviously we use your grades to determine your entry score to get in from there as well. So academic performance in TPP is a contributor to those scores. The process for deferring programs, you'll receive detailed written instructions on that once you receive your offer. We don't leave it ambiguous. Just follow the instructions that we send through from there. Deferral limits can do change between program to program. Again, that information will be provided, but generally 12 months is what you'll get from there. If you do want to take longer, you'll just need to reapply in a later semester. Okay, so early offer for current year 11 or younger students. They open up in August. You'll work with your secondary school, and there'll be effectively a designated early offer guarantee contact at your school who will support you in applying for the early offer guarantee. The school sends through a statement of support. They review your grades. We give them some metrics they use to determine they review your grades, your aspirations, your commitment, and a range of other soft factors that extend beyond the ATAR to determine your entry. And then they will be able to submit an application with you from there as well. So you do have to submit that one via your school. Hi, Amber. If you do have some more detailed questions about exactly what courses to move into, I'd recommend getting in touch with Student Central. I'll be putting their phone number up on the slide on the next slide, but effectively you can either email information@usc.edu.au, or their number is 5430-2890. But I will put that phone number and that email on the next slide as well. But Student Central will be able to help you with specific enrollment advice without getting too granular into in this one. I'd actually have to pull up the website and pull up the study plans, and it's probably best off that we've got someone on the phone with you who can help you through that process. So yeah, if you do get stuck along the way, anyone, pick up the phone is the easiest way. We've got dedicated teams who can basically pick up the phone and step you through the process. There's no point going through blind and trying to work it out yourself. If you just get stuck, ask for help. That support will be offered. All right. Once you finish your TPP, do you apply for the course you want as early as possible? That's a great question. You can go through in the following semester. So if you complete TPP in semester 1 next year, for example, there is nothing stopping you being enrolled in a degree in semester 2. But say you've done TPP and work's picked up, and it's gotten a bit busy, or life's getting in the way somehow, there's nothing stopping you applying in 6, 12, 18 months down the track as well. Now, obviously, getting into a bit of a flow and getting used to building the study into your life is a big part of the process. But definitely, you can just move through into the following semester once you've completed TPP. Can I do a year of study, then put my degree on pause and come back to it? That's a fantastic question. The answer is absolutely yes. So they're called study pauses. Lots of students do them for lots of different reasons. As I said, life gets busy. You basically apply for a pause in your study. You come back for a semester, you can apply for another pause. So you can basically stop and start university as you go. If you do, I will just note a caveat to that. If it does take you a very long time to get your degree, like say 10-year plus, you might start having issues with credit, which is basically means that certain courses that you've completed earlier in your degree might no longer credit into that degree because of structural changes or accreditation changes or things like that as well. The university will help you, support you if you ever get into that situation, but under 10 years, you can stop and start as you need to make it fit within your life. So there's a lot of flexibility there, lots of flexibility. For the MD question, I would encourage you to lodge an application, have us on your preference list. Um, um, our camp and our university accommodation at the Sunshine Coast campus isn't actually managed by the university. They're managed by a series of private companies who've just built accommodation providers around the university. I would definitely be applying sooner rather than later, though, as on-campus accommodation is always a bit competitive. If you don't like university after you've started, okay, this is a great one because there's a lot of people out there, and I'm sure there's a few people on this webinar who aren't quite sure if university is for them. And my advice is always jump in, do a month or so, and see how you go. So the way that it works is that at university we have a thing called a census date, and we've all done the census before, or at least we're aware of it. Some of the high school students might not have come across it, but effectively it's where we do a count. It's a head count of who's still enrolled in the classes. Now, if you withdraw from your studies before census, your grades, or lack thereof at this point, won't be recorded against your academic profile, and you also won't be charged for those courses. Now, census date falls usually around week 4, week 5, so you get about a month of study before you have to lock those things in. So if you go to your first 3 weeks of classes at university, you're not sure it's for you, or maybe it's the wrong degree, and you think you're just going to reapply for the next semester and change degrees, or maybe you decide you want to go down a different pathway, you can withdraw at no academic or financial penalty whatsoever. But once that census date has passed, those grades will be recorded. So if you withdraw, it'll be recorded as a withdrawal fail because you haven't completed the assessment requirements, and you will also be charged for those courses. Now, that's not quite the halfway mark through the course, but it's definitely deep enough that you sort of know what you're getting into, and you'll be able to make a good assessment. You'll usually be either working on or have already submitted your first piece of assessment by census date as well. So that might give you a bit of a feel for doing the work as well. But yeah, you've definitely got a little bit of time up your sleeve before you have to make the final commitment to stick around. Funnily enough, I've got 2 degrees, and in my final class for my postgraduate studies, I enrolled in it about 4 times. So every semester, I'd get up there like I life got busy, kids and all that. So every semester I enroll, I might miss a week or two of classes, and I'd be like, oh, I could just catch up, or I'll just pull out. And in the end, it took my wife slapping me across the back of the head and saying, "Hey, you made a commitment to do this thing. Just get in there and do it." So I remember that day. There was an assignment due, and I was on the fence between, do I do the assignment, or or do I just withdraw? And I just pulled the finger out, got in, did the assessment, and no regrets. Got the qualification after all in the end. But yeah, you can. Those census states definitely are there to provide you with a bit of flexibility, because again, life gets busy. Yeah, that flexibility can be really, really important. All right. What would happen if I deferred my program and then later rejected it? So it wouldn't be a rejection. It would be basically you just would not take up your deferral. So if you were to reapply through QTAC the following semester for a different degree, there'd be nothing to stop you from doing that. Yeah, so no stress about that at all. If you do chemistry degree at one university and then transfer to another to do the same degree, would you have to redo the first year, and how would you affect payments? That's a great question. So say, for example, you've done 18 months at another university, and you suddenly want to come to University of Sunshine Coast and to do the same degree. Maybe you've moved house, or maybe you prefer our teaching style better, or you're looking for a smaller campus lifestyle. Well, fantastic. We welcome you in for starters. But more importantly, what we would do then is we put you through what we call a credit assessment. Now, for students that have completed a sizable portion of their degree at another institution, obviously you might have a lot of credit coming your way. If you've done 18 months, that's effectively 12 courses credit that you might be eligible for. So generally what we do, and it will be different, is if there's certain courses that have to be completed at our university for accreditation reasons, then you might not get credit for those courses. So if it's a heavily accredited program, sport and exercise science, for example, which carries a sports scientist accreditation, then you might find that there are certain things you can't get credit for. Or it could be that the content that's covered at that other university isn't actually covered. Oh, sorry. The content in our courses isn't actually covered at that other university. It's not uncommon if to take to take an introductory course at one university and compare it to another and find that there's a few things missing because we include it in other courses in the program. But if I'm speaking generally, most of the time degree structures are very similar. So you're probably going to get you're probably going to get a lot of credit that way. And it is really common for students to have credit from different universities as well. A lot of students do also cross-institutional study, which is where if there's a particular course that's not available at our university, they can enroll as a visiting student at another university, do the one or two courses that we didn't have, and get that credit from there. So universities are generally pretty flexible. The only difference is going to be is when there are accreditation requirements that might get us to be a bit more inflexible. All right. I do disability work, and with placement, I have to be close to work. Can we make it work for you? Absolutely. I'm assuming that you're a local. All of our placements are local to our campus regions. So presumably, if you're looking at us as an option, then yeah, you should be able to go through. But definitely, when you go to enroll in one of the courses that includes a placement, have a chat to the placement coordinators within your school, and they'll be able to understand your preferences from there. But yeah, look, we do understand that some people have additional requirements. That means they need to be closer to home or a bit more flexibility. And as a smaller provider, we can provide that flexibility as well. Is there a way to study languages that unis that we don't offer? Yeah, absolutely. There's cross-institutional study, as I mentioned, is one way in which you can take on some courses. But generally speaking, if you want to do like a full major in um, like Indonesian or something like that, you might need to enroll in a program at that university. Cross institutional study is good for a couple of courses, but gets a bit complicated when you start looking at lots of them out there. If you do have questions about it and you want to explore it more fully, then definitely shoot us through an email at information@usc.edu.au, and we'll be able to support you there as well. I might just flick over this slide just so people do have that email address and that phone number that they can ring through if they've got more detailed questions there. When it says choose an elective from the undergraduate elective course options in the study sequence, does that mean any course of your choosing? It means any course of your choosing within that elective list. So sometimes the elective list might be any elective courses from the entire school. So that could mean, say, the School of Law and Society. That gives you access to all the Bachelor of Arts courses, or it could be from the or from a particular group of disciplines. So it might be a particular stream of the sciences. It really comes down to the degree you're looking at. But there will be links in there that if you start clicking through the course guide there on the website, it will take you through to where you need to go. But definitely shoot that through to information at USC if you've got more specific questions about your enrollment, and they'll be able to help you through from there. But elective courses are basically free courses that you can pick from a wider list of courses than you can in just your own degree. And that's going to give you a lot of flavor and a lot of customization to what you study. There's a question here about phone calls to early offer guarantee recipients. Those phone calls are ongoing. Don't panic if you haven't had a call yet. As you can imagine, a lot of students receive the early offers, and it does take a bit of time for those calls to be made. Don't panic if you hadn't received a call from us. Those welcome calls are ongoing. Would deferring a program stop you from applying to other degrees during the QTAC cycle? You would need to track to Q if you want to apply within the same round that you've deferred a program, like say you defer a program for Sem 1 and you want to change it again and change universities, I'll be jumping on the phone to QTAC and they'll be able to help support you with that one. All right. I think I've answered all of these. Let me just quickly go through. There will be a full recording of this. There will be a full recording of this webinar emailed to everyone, so you will have access to that one. And as I said, you will receive a lot of really detailed advice when it comes to choosing those choosing courses and enrolling and accepting offers and things like that as well. Just follow the instructions you receive in your email. Just going through here now. He's always responded to that one now. You'll get a USC Central login um, when you do receive your offer. I think I've answered all the questions that are currently in here. I'll just stand by. I'll just stand by for a couple of minutes. So if you do have any, if you are furiously typing something out, don't panic. I'm not going to cut off the webinar just yet. But for those of us who are we're just listening in, if you think you've got all your questions answered, please thank you so much for joining us. Wishing you all the best with your university studies. If you do need any support, 5430-2890. It's our wonderful Student Central team. They're an absolutely dedicated force of staff that know everything about what makes a university tick, and anything they don't know, they've got access to at their fingertips. If you email them at information@usc.edu.au, you'll get some really helpful instructions back. Someone's asked if we get any breaks during our programs throughout the year. Yeah, absolutely. The university semester only runs in two 13-week blocks at the moment. So semester 1, semester 2. Some degrees are a little bit different. Nursing in particular, all degrees like education with placements can sometimes have different flows for the semester. But generally, you are looking at two 13-week blocks. 13 plus 13 is 26 weeks of teaching, half the year. There are exam periods as well, but yep, most of the summer there are no classes running. There are sessions and some postgraduate courses will run over the other sessions as well. But for most undergraduate degrees, you're going to find yourself running only for about half the year, with a break over Christmas and a break over the winter period as well. If you check out the scholarships website, we do have a filter which helps you apply for a lot of scholarships. Scholarships aren't just something you apply for once and then that's it. I would encourage you to continue to look for scholarships and apply for scholarships as your university studies continue. Just because it is new ones crop up. Some are annual, they go to the people who apply for them. Ultimately, no scholarships awarded to someone that doesn't apply. So you've got to be in it to win it, as they say. I'd really encourage you to continue to look for scholarships. A lot of your academics will email you a few when there are relevant ones that crop up as well over the course of the semester. I'll just give it 1 or 2 more minutes to see if there's any more questions through the Q&A. Clubs just for fun. Yeah, they absolutely can. Predominantly are just for fun. They're an opportunity for you to network and engage with other students. There won't be any clubs, for example, that are offering 4-credit courses or things like that. But generally, they're a way for you to meet people. A lot of clubs are based around academic study areas, but we also do have clubs that are based around, obviously, like fun stuff like video gaming and choirs and people with just shared interests, creative writers and things like that as well. Had a question here about QTAC preference list. So for the December offer round, which will be going out on Thursday, 12 noon is the deadline to change your QTech preferences. However, if you change your preferences after that, keep in mind that those will be relevant for the January offer rounds that are still to come as well. We'll keep making offers all the way through to February. If you're paying up front instead of Hex, when do you receive invoicing throughout the program? Student Central will be able to help you out from there. But from my recollection, those invoices do appear in your UniSC accounts in the finances section at the commencement of each semester. They go out there with a due date of census date, which is the how that one works from there as well. There are Christian clubs at both Sunshine Coast and the Moreton Bay campus. For those that asked, I'm not sure if they're denominational or not. They're all the affiliated clubs though are actually on the USC Student Guild website. If you wanted to give it a bit of a look, but look, if you can bring a couple of like-minded people together, you got yourself a club. You can start applying for funding for run events and activities and things like that as well through the guild. So strongly encourage you to get involved and meet people because yeah, it's a fantastic way to to engage with people with similar interests. Depending on the IT issues, if it's to do with your account, absolutely. Student Central can handle IT issues. So they're definitely a good place to start. But if it's depending on the type of it, they might actually refer you to the student help desk and lodge an inquiry that way. There's a question there. Our student ambassadors is a paid casual position. If it is something you are interested in, I will just drop in the chat an email. If anyone is just interested in being a student ambassador, it's a great part-time job. I was a student ambassador when I was a student. You basically get to go out and talk about what it's like to go to university with people. And I will send through the email in the chat right now. All right. Textbooks. Yes, there may be other resources, so textbooks or other study materials that you need to purchase in order to commence your studies. Those will be detailed in your course outline. You can see current course outlines, even for courses that you won't do for multiple semesters, just by jumping into the course profiles from the program pages on the website. So it's all accessible and handy in one place. But the required readings and textbooks can be found there. You can look into those. Yeah, you definitely can go through and look into those opportunities as you need them. Is there a Pride Club or anything similar at Sunshine Coast campus? Yeah, I'm almost certain of it. Again, jump onto the USC Student Guild website, and they've got a full list of their affiliated clubs in there, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. All right, I'm watching the number of participants really start to drop now. Look, if you do have any follow-up questions, particularly specific questions about your own enrollment, I'd encourage you to email information@usc.edu.au, and the Student Central team will be able to help you with really specific questions. If you call them up during business hours, Monday to Friday on 5430-2890, you will be able to also speak to someone, and they'll literally step you through what you need step by step. And yeah, we do have gyms at both Sunshine Coast and Moreton Bay campus as well. All right. I think we've only got a couple of stragglers left. So for those who've made it this far, thank you very much for listening to us. I hope it's been informative. I hope that you've had some of your questions answered. And thank you very much for your time tonight. Alrighty. Thank you.